Hey, hey, how are y'all doing out there? Give the room a minute to populate before we get rolling here. Uh, the first thing I want to say is to everybody that was on the Zoom meeting a little while ago, the writers' meeting number 3, as I mentioned at the beginning of the meeting, Zoom gives you 40 minutes unless you pay for more, and that's it. So our 40 minutes was up. I'm sorry, I let the time get by me. I forgot that I actually logged in a couple of minutes early, so I thought we had a minute or so left, and it was just up. But no big deal. I got everybody who was there for the whole meeting. I got your name, and so you're good to go. On that topic, I think roughly two-thirds of the teams have already been to a riders meeting. That's pretty good. I think it's something like 18 out of the 27 teams. So I'll do at least two more riders meetings this week, and I'll keep trying to do them until we get everybody in there. Uh, I do them in the morning. I do them at night. I do them on the weekends. I do them in the middle of the week. I'm doing them at all times I can. I have noted that somehow the Europeans managed to get all three of their guys into a Zoom meeting, a writers meeting, when only one team member is required. So if you can't be at one, unless you're a soloist, you don't have a problem. Just get somebody else on your team to go to one, and that's the easiest way to take care of it. Once again, make sure that you give StreamYard your credentials. Just follow the link, and that way I can see your name if you ask a question or give a comment. Those are the ones I get to first. So, the topic tonight is things that you can do in the 11th hour to enhance your success on the Tour of Idaho. And there are still some things that you can do that will make a difference when you get here. And that's what I want to go through tonight. We have some time tonight because this is not a topic that will this isn't going to take a full hour, so we'll have plenty of time for some questions. Feel free to ask questions as I'm going along tonight because I'm going to take my time as I go through this. And when I'm talking about things that you can do in the 11th hour, maybe the thing to do is talk about things that you definitely should not be doing right now. And some things that you should not be doing right now are a lot of training. You want to take it easy right now. Even if you're one of the last teams through, now is the time to start taking it easy. You want to hydrate as much as possible, probably eat a lot of carbohydrates. I'm not a doctor and I'm not a fitness expert, but I know that when I went climbing and every time I've ever done the Tour of Idaho, I spent the week before I left eating as much stuff as I could because you're not going to be able to eat enough stuff on the Tour of Idaho to replace the calories that you're burning in most cases. So I was kind of like a bear, getting ready for winter. So every time I've done a tour or a big wall route or a remote alpine climb somewhere, I always spent that last week, didn't go to the gym, didn't train at all. I just ate and drank and tried to get my body right. You don't want to hurt yourself just a week before the tour. So don't be doing any training. Don't be in the gym. Don't even ride your motorcycle that much. Relax, get your mind right, and get out there and get ready to go. The other thing I would definitely not do is tear up your bike or tear up your body, and that's kind of what happens when you're trying to take care of a lot of things. Trying to put that fine tune on your buffness before you show up to do the tour. There's nothing you're going to accomplish in training when you've got a week or so left. That's just not going to happen. You're better off at this point just trying to make sure that you don't hurt yourself, that you don't tear up your motorcycle. If you blow an engine right now, that's a problem unless you have a spare bike. Uh, don't climb a 14,000 foot peak, especially don't climb a 14,000 foot peak the night before day one and then drive 300 miles and then sleep at the trailhead. That didn't work out so well for the guy that did that last year. There was another team last year that did a race and then jumped in their van and drove down here and similarly tried to start the next day. I wouldn't do any of that stuff. You need to just be taking it easy right now. So don't stress yourself right now. Relax. You've been preparing for months for this. You're probably in pretty good shape. So just back off the training and make sure you don't tear up your bike or your body. Then the last thing is, for God's sake, don't read all the bullshit on the internet. Uh, I think that we're a very good source of information. And, you go to that forum, I stay out of the forum. That's independent. Those people can say whatever they want. Every once in a while, I might chime in when I see something that I think, nah, I have a different perspective on that. But for the most part, that forum is out there for people other than me to talk to you. Ask those people because most of them have done the tour, some of them several times, and they're, I think, a pretty good source of information. So let's go through this thing and talk about some things that you should be doing in the 11th hour here. One, I mentioned peripherally, talking about not training, is you should get some rest. Make sure you're getting a lot of sleep at night. Again, eat well, drink as much water as you can, hydrate, but just relax right now. Just rest, do little things to your motorcycle, but don't be going out and doing anything right now that's really going to get you hammered, because you're getting ready to hammer yourself for 10 days. And the only way I can describe what your body feels like when you roll up the Sundance Mountain is this: exactly like somebody gave you a soap party, if you know what that is. Uh, get hit with a bag of hammers is another expression that kind of covers the same thing. You're just going to get your butt kicked. Some of the fittest people I know have showed up at Sundance Mountain just running on fumes, and it's that way for everybody. So right now, you need to just be getting your body right and your mind right as well. Another thing that you can do that I think would really help you right now is go through your motorcycle, safety wire everything, and Loctite everything. We've talked about that a little bit before. The number of people that have lost things that you wouldn't think could fall off a motorcycle, like chain rings and cogs, bark busters and stuff like that. That happens all the time. But people have shown up here missing missing a front sprocket or with a rear sprocket that's all wobbly. Brakes have fallen off. Safety wire everything that you can safety wire easily, and Loctite everything else, and screw that Loctite blue and green stuff. Loctite Reddit for this. Make sure that torque settings are important for stuff like that. Make sure everything is at the right torque. Loctite it, safety wire. All that is stuff that you could be doing right now that's fun. Most of you probably have a shop. I love being in my shop. I watch baseball games on TV, and I go out there and I tinker with bikes and stuff, and that doesn't take a lot of energy. So go out right now and do those little fine tuning things. Just make sure all your bolts are set to the correct torque spec. Make sure you don't have mismatched bolts. This might be a good time to go down to your local power sports dealer and get the bolt that's supposed to go on that hole that you replaced with something you bought at the hardware store, and then torque it to the right torque specs. Then Loctite the damn thing in there if you can't safety wire it. Those are all really good things to do. The other thing that I might do in the 11th hour along those lines is I would start using the tools that you bought, especially for this trip. I recommend it to everybody, and I think most people on the forum have told you the same thing. You don't need a huge toolkit, because there's a lot of things that if you have to use that tool to fix your bike, you're out of the tour anyway. So you might as well just, get to the nearest road and then call for help. But you should make sure you know how to use those tools. Motion Pro has some really cool tools, and they're the ones I use, and I even drill them out to make them even lighter because I know I'm not going to be using them a lot. It's just there in case something happens on the tour. But you know what? I've used those tools before to do things like change tires, to remove my spark plug, to do things like that. Make sure you practice all that stuff using the very tools that you brought along, okay? So that way you don't get any surprise. You don't find out that this tire lever that you bought that's super lightweight, that you then drilled a bunch of holes in, doesn't work. It bends when you try to use it or something like that. Just test all that stuff out. I know people that have never changed a tire before they've gotten here before. And make sure you know how to change a tire. If you're using tubes, you don't have to get the whole thing off. You just have to get one side off, pull the tube out, put it back in. And that's another reason why I like tubes. It's just super simple. Sometimes you can patch the tube that's in there, and then you don't have to use a spare tube, which is always what I do. I cannot emphasize enough, and I think most of you would agree with this, that right now is a really good time while you're sitting at home, consuming a lot of calories, drinking a lot of water. Nav study. You cannot possibly do enough nav study for this. If you've done day 1, 3, 4, 5 times already, do it again. Do it one more time. Do every day one more time. Go through, look at the aerial photos, try to reconcile them with my waypoints, add waypoints where you need them, and just make sure that you feel really good about the navigation in your head. If you've done aerial study, Google Earth even allows you to tilt the terrain so you can kind of see what it looks like to look up that valley, and it's pretty good looking. So make sure that, like, when you ride into a valley, you've done all that stuff and you're looking up there and, you go, yeah, yeah, yeah. I think I know what to expect when I get here. So those are all nav study again is one thing you could spend all of your time from now until your tour of Idaho starts going through the navigation again, because navigation is an important part of what we do, and your ability to navigate on the fly rapidly is really going to be essential in your ability to get to Sundance under the parameters that we've set out there. If you can navigate easily and accurately, you're not going to have any problem. The riding, I have met only a handful of people that actually showed up, I should say each year, who weren't good enough riders to do Tour of Idaho. The trails just aren't that hard. This isn't like a 2,000-mile long enduro race. It's not Erzberg for people with fully loaded bikes. The trails are, for the most part, very reasonable outside of the challenge sections. The problem is stringing them together. There's a lot of them, and you just got to keep going. And part of that is your ability to navigate really rapidly. If on day one you find yourself sitting in the sun for 15, 20 minutes at a time trying to figure out navigation, just sitting there in the sun is going to kill you. By the way, I see this all the time. If when you stop your motorcycle, whether it's to take a drink of water, look at the map, take a challenge point photo, park the bike in the shade, and if you can, you get in the shade as well. Now, in some places you can't do that. Don't spend very much time there. But when at all possible, stop in the shade. I go riding with guys all the time, and when they're leading, they want to stop to take a drink of water in the middle of a meadow somewhere with the sun beating right down on them. It's the worst place to do that. Just make darn sure that when you do stop, you stop in the shade. And if you've really got your nav dialed, you won't have to stop for very long. You will a little bit, but not a lot. Another brilliant thing that you could be doing right now, a first aid refresher course, or if you've ignored this advice so far, get online and take a basic first aid course. I think most of you know how to change a tire, but do you know how to splint a broken bone? Do you know what happens if you get heat prostration? What happens if you pass out because of the heat or something like that? Or somebody in your team does. Do you know what to do with all that? Do you know when you're supposed to raise the head or raise your legs? Those are all important things. That's like 101 for your body. So I talk to guys all the time that are brilliant at fixing bikes, man. They could even take apart the fuel injection system on a KTM on the side of a trail somewhere and get the thing running again. But you say, okay, what are the vital signs? Tell me what your vital signs are. And they can't answer that question. You're nuts if you go out in the Tour of Idaho and somebody on your team doesn't know that. And it's better if all of you know it. All of you should have some basic training in first aid, because I'm telling you, there's a non-zero chance that you're going to need it. I've broken my foot. I've broken ribs. I've separated shoulders. I've done everything on the tour. A friend of mine had a really horrific shoulder separation on the tour one year, and we popped the damn thing right back in on the edge of the trail. It hurt like a son of a gun. But I had a little first aid kit. We had some medicine in there, and that guy was able to finish. We got him sort of medicated up a little bit. We're able to, make sure that we had the right combination of heat and ice when he got in that night, and he was able to finish. If you know a little bit about basic first aid, you're enhancing your ability to deal with a true emergency by getting out in one piece, but also you could stop little emergencies from getting to be big emergencies. So that's something I think that's very important. Check your equipment one last time. Go through your entire kit. We tell everybody, when it comes to packing, lay out everything you think you're going to need and throw away half of it. And make sure you get that kit as light as possible. People say, well, what constitutes as light as possible? There's no right answer to that because everybody's a little bit different. But, yeah, I wouldn't be setting out with 50 pounds of stuff on my bike. That's obviously way too much. I usually have, if you don't count fluids, I probably have 25 or 30 pounds, and everything else is fluids. And that's it. That's all I carry. I have a very Spartan kit. The only guy I've ever seen carry less than me was a finisher named Bruce Baker about 5 or 6 years ago. That guy showed up with an even more Spartan kit than I have. But the less stuff you carry, the happier you're going to be. That's something else I learned in mountaineering. If you carry everything, including the kitchen sink, you're going to end up needing everything, including the kitchen sink, because it slows you down and it wears you out. The less stuff you take, the faster you can go, the less energy you're burning. Right now it's a good time to be going through that and saying, do I really need this? Every year I see people show up with stuff that's like still in the packaging. They bought tools that they didn't take out of the plastic wrapper. They've got food that they put in boxes. I mean, it's okay to leave it in the wrapper, but for at least take the cardboard box off. So there's all kinds of crazy stuff like that that people do because at the last minute they just start throwing stuff in there to get ready to go. Now's a good time to go through all that stuff and make sure that you don't get caught doing something that's a little goofy just because you ran out of time to really think your way through it. Check your packing. Again, I and others have cautioned you to make sure you ride a fully loaded tour bike on technical trails before you show up here. And a lot of you are doing that. I follow you on social media. Many of you have friended me on Facebook, which is something I suggested that you all do that makes it easier for us to communicate. And I see your pictures, and I see you guys out riding trails, in your fully loaded tour bikes, fiddling with the suspension, fiddling with packing. Brilliant. That's exactly what you should be doing. And every ride doesn't have to be a killer ride, but just go out and ride. Also, if you haven't done a 200-mile day yet, maybe you should think about doing that because your first day on the Tour of Idaho is 200 miles, and more than that if you're on the 3-person team. So go out and make sure that you ride something like that. Now, it's kind of late in the game now, so again, you got to be a little bit careful about balancing this. You don't want to hurt yourself. But if you have the opportunity, if you're one of these teams that's not starting until sometime in the middle of August, you have plenty of time left to go out and do some more challenging training rides to make sure that that you got your ducks all lined up. So check your packing. Make sure that you get everything that you can. The heavy stuff should go down low if you're going to pack it on your bike. Pretty much the same in your pack. Again, I've talked about this before. There's a whole article on Mojazz about it. I like wearing stuff on my body just because it decouples a lot of mass from the motorcycle. And I'm used to carrying heavy packs anyway, so it doesn't bother me. That's anecdotal because my sensitivity to carrying stuff on my back's quite low. Most people are probably going to be more sensitive to that. If you have a big load in your back and it bothers you, the fact that you're distracted is taking energy away. So pack it whatever way is the most comfortable for you. Ignore the physics of it. Just do it the way that it feels the best for you. That's really the best way to do it. But how do you know if there's not a better way to pack if you haven't tried different things? If you haven't tried going out and wearing a bunch of stuff in your backpack on a long day, you should try that. See if you, at the end of the day, you're like me and you feel a lot better if you actually carried it on your back instead of having a bunch of stuff on your bike. Try putting things in different places to see what's easier to get in and out of. There's all kinds of things like that you could do right now, little things. You might decide that, hey, some of these small bags that Giant Loop sells, little things you can put in your handlebars just to put like maybe your wallet in or specialized things like that. Maybe it'd be a good idea to get some of that stuff, and there's still plenty of time to do that. If you're actively thinking about it right now, you're working your way through all of that stuff. Check your bikes. Again, make sure that you safety wire everything, torque specs, put the right bolts in there. Don't start out with hardware store bolts and stuff. Put the right bolts that are supposed to be in there now. Torque them to spec. Safety wire everything. Go through your whole bike. Make sure it's good to go. I tell people all the time, I actually recommend showing up on the day one with maybe some tires that you've been riding with. They need to be in reasonable shape, but they don't have to be brand new. If they've got half their tread life left, that's fine. But day one's really hard on tires. And a really good scheme is to do day one on whatever's on the bike. And as long as your tire is, around 50% or better, you're going to be just fine. I wouldn't show up with a bald tire, but anything that's got a reasonable amount of wear on it that you can get through 200 miles of rocky terrain will be fine. Then go to Power Sports, start out day two on a brand new, fresh set of tires. And it'll feel great, especially out in the desert. You got sharp knobs. You're out there riding through all that sand and stuff. You'll feel a lot better. Then when you get to Salmon, Josh will hook you up. As long as you made arrangements with him in advance, he will hook you up when you get to Salmon with a fresh set of probably Golden tires. But like he said, you call him. If he can get them, that's fine. You can't drop ship to Josh. But if he can get it and sell it to you and make money off of it, that's perfectly legitimate. Check logistics. Call every place where you think you have a reservation and make sure you still do. I know a lot of you made those reservations months ago, which is a good idea. But you know, these are little bitty podunky towns and small places, and maybe the person wrote it on a napkin or something and pinned it to the wall. Now maybe there's three other things pinned over it. It's not a bad idea to call and make darn sure that everything logistically is accounted for. We had a team last year that showed up at the end of the tour. They'd rented a U-Haul, and the place had closed. So double check all that stuff, a week or so before you go. Make sure your reservations are still intact. Those people are really nice. They're not going to mind you call back. Hey, sorry to bother you. Just checking to make sure you still have a reservation for 1, 2, 3 people, however many it is on this particular night. Thanks. Oh, and if we're late, can you just leave the key in the room? That's something I tell everybody. If we're not there by 9 o'clock or whenever your clerk leaves, can you please just leave a key in a room for us? They'll all say yes to that. Or they'll give you a number to call where somebody will come down and let you in. But make sure that you have done that. Make sure that you've gone through your logistics, and make sure you have you've factored in the fact that you may be in some places quite late, and you let people know that's a possibility and come up with a contingency plan for how to deal with that. Make sure you've got your shuttle well thought out. I think going up and renting a U-Haul is fine, but again, make sure that you double check that reservation, okay? And make sure you know how to get to the U-Haul place from the end of the tour. Again, develop contingency plans. We talked ad infinitum, ad nauseum on a PBR Monday a few weeks ago about how important it is. In fact, it might have been the last one we did. What to do when things go wrong. And I think that's right. And Jeff Stotts was on here. I think Jeff's out there tonight watching. And we talked about how important it is for you to think through in advance what to do when things go wrong. And that's a process that doesn't require that much energy. It may keep you up at night. You might lose some sleep. But right now is a good time to be thinking about that. Write it down. Think in advance about all of the things that could possibly go wrong. There's lots of them. And how you're going to deal with those things that come up. I got a team member that gets hurt. What am I going to do? I got a team member that's just unhappy. What am I going to do? I run out of gas here. What am I going to do? Those are all things to think about. And if you've thought about that stuff in advance, when it comes, you're not going to be as stressed. Look, when you do something on the tour, like you experience a flat tire or you ride your bike off a trail, something in the normal circumstances of riding maybe is not that big of a deal. You're on your bike going through a creek crossing. It sucks, but we deal with it. On the tour, where you got huge distances to go, the first thing that happens is you just panic because it's like, oh shit, I think I'm done. This may have done me in. Well, if you've anticipated those things and you've worked through first of all, what to do, then how long it's going to take me to get this done, then you can have a more rational view of, look, is this really going to knacker me, or can I work my way around this and continue on? Think about all that stuff in advance. Do your contingency planning. Eat. When you're on the tour, you will lose weight. I lost 10 pounds the last one I did. Make sure that you eat, hydrate, take the best care of your body right now that you can. And by the way, don't show up here if there's something wrong. If you've got a bad knee or something like that, there's just too much of a chance you're going to hurt yourself out there. You need to be in pretty good shape before you show up, because you're going to be working your ass off. Everything needs to be functioning at or around 100%. Now, 100% for me in my 60s is not 100% of what it is for a guy in his 20s, but I can still get through this thing. But I wouldn't do it if I had a bad knee or something like that. I had a bad hip for many years, and that's one of the reasons I quit doing the tour about 5 years ago. My hip was killing me, and it was getting to be a problem. Now that it feels good, I think once my kids get a little bigger, I could probably start again. All right, and finally, practice extracting your motorcycle from side hills and creeks. Practice bike extraction. Most of you spent the money for that spendy kit because you guys send me PMs and I see your photographs on your social media. Good for you. You went to Cascade Rescue and you bought the kit. You bought the good kit, which is the one that I said. Now, take it out and practice using it. When you're pulling a bike straight up off the ground into a tree, it's easy peasy. It's all like, this isn't hard. Practice dragging it up a hill, maybe, where you got to drag it through bushes and over rocks and stuff like that. You'll learn a lot about how to, tugger straps are really good for that because they give you good attachment points to attach your bike. You're going to learn it's best to take all of your bags off the bike before you try to extract it. If you lose a bike down a side hill or something, make darn sure you turn off the gas as quickly as possible. People forget to do that, and they lose a third of their gas. It runs out the overflow tube, and it's soaking the ground there. And then you get the bike back up off the side hill, but now it's out of gas. So again, think through all that stuff. Having practiced it, you'll see those things firsthand, and it'll just make it a lot easier for you to do. So that was a list I came up with. Those are all things that you could be doing right now and should be doing right now. A few things that you should not. Take a deep breath, relax. We're getting pretty close to go time. And once the flag drops, you just got to go out and ride. And look, all you got to do is ride. Just ride your motorcycle north. That's it. You'll figure out the navigation, some of you faster than others, but nobody's ever not made their way to Pocatello because they got lost. There are people that retire because they can't do it, but the navigation is not that hard. And those of you that have gone out and pre-ridden these trails, I watch what you're doing, and it seems to me like you're figuring it out. It's that way the whole way. And as I've told people in all these riders meetings, I'll help you out. You're going to be able to contact me through your PLB. If you get to some place where you are absolutely stumped, all you got to do is ping me day or night. I've got a 24-hour-a-day, 7-day-a-week job during tour season, which is to make sure I'm available to answer your questions within reason, and I will. I've never told anybody I wouldn't answer their question. Occasionally, if it gets to be too much, I might say it's going to cost you a point. But that's the reason I want you to be able to set up your PLB so that you and I can communicate back and forth. So that's all I have tonight. We're about a half an hour into this. Let me go see if I see any questions that are relevant to what we're talking about. So I see Jeff, how you doing? Jeff, how you doing? Keith, thanks for the riders meeting. Sorry, Zoom timed me out. Timed us all out. We were up on our 40 minutes, so that was that. And that's my fault for poor time management. Let me see what else we got. Hey, Mike Olson, how you doing, buddy? Justin Reed, good to see you back in Kentucky there, friend. Jeffrey Jensen, let's put this one up. This is a pretty good one. Practice means you won't panic on the trail. Staying cool is critical. Coming from Mr. Cool, the guy that figured out his way to get a bike 600 feet back up off a really bad side hill, and he did. And the key to that is having thought your way through it in advance. What else we got here? Okay, some sawing information that belongs up on the forum. Let's see what else we got here. I don't see anything that looks like a question related to this, but if you got them, bring them up, or questions really about anything else, and I'll try to answer them. If not, I'm going to actually get off early tonight. I spent a week in Kentucky. I just flew back yesterday, and I'm still kind of time lagged out from that. I will schedule a bunch of riders meetings this week to make sure we get everybody in. I'll do at least 2 more, and if that doesn't get everybody, I'll do as many as I need to. Remember, only one member of your team needs to attend a riders meeting. They can disseminate the information. What is the worst thing that has happened to someone? Let me put this up. Well, it depends on whether it's from my perspective or from their perspective, because that's a couple of different questions. From my perspective, there have been several people that have been life flighted out. That's happened many times. Normally, those are not T1 people, they are T2 people, and I don't know anything about it. I know last year there was some guy that got himself in trouble up near Chalice somewhere. Never met the guy, never talked to him. Said he was doing the tour of Idaho, but he was doing a T2. He wasn't doing a T1. Last year we did have some guys that called for life flight, didn't take it, broken leg. But there have been several life flight incidents, and those to me are the most serious things. There have been some some rescues where some guys were out of water and were completely out of gas and had to call for help. Those are things that I think are pretty bad. Nobody's died, but that's kind of been a miracle in a couple cases. Again, not with T1 riders, but with T2 riders. There's some T2 riders that have been really seriously hurt. I hear about all this stuff third hand because I haven't been in contact with those people. But typically, what happens is, somebody calls me and say, "Hey, did you know this person?" Because they got badly hurt and they said they were doing a tour of Idaho. And nope, I don't know that person. I don't know anything about it. The worst thing that's happened from the perspective of some riders is that I was mean to them, and I flunked them out of the tour of Idaho because I'm a bitter college professor who hates anybody that's young and fast and all that kind of stuff. There have been some people that showed up that just clearly didn't understand the nav, were clearly flouting the rules, were clearly not by themselves. In one case, we found a guy with a chase vehicle. I have been known to show up at places along the tour when I have suspicions about something that's going on. And I was waiting at a road crossing for a group once, and a car pulls up, big trailer, back of the trailer opens up, and this team that had sworn up and down that they were independent goes rolling up to this car and sits there, haul out tires, haul out water, haul out fuel. I suspected those guys because they didn't have lights on their bikes. And when they showed up at my place, they were carrying next to nothing. That indicates to you something's going on. And those guys have been bitching about that for years. They still can't get over the fact they got popped. Every shop along the way called me too and said, "Do you believe these guys? These guys are claiming they're doing this by themselves and they're not." So stuff like that's happened before. And from those guys' perspective, they were just treated horribly. There was a team that was that way last year too. There's a team that showed up, some guy who was evidently a pretty good bicycle racer, but he showed up. Yeah, hadn't done his own nav, and he didn't know anything about the route. He was kind of a goofball, and he finally claimed he lost his wallet or something like that, and he was all upset. He said it was the worst event, the worst run event he had ever been a part of, and I didn't have to say a word. Everybody said, "How much did you pay to be a part of this?" So I guess that's about it. I'm gonna sign off tonight. We're coming up on half past the hour, and that's enough. I'm gonna go out in the yard. I'm gonna have a good time, drink a few beers, and I'm gonna go to bed. So again, we'll schedule some more riders meetings this week via Zoom, and I'll try to come up with a guest for next week. I had two guys this week that had to pull out at the last minute. I'll see what I can do for next week. Then after that, once tour season's going, what I generally do is I haul a team in, and PBR Mondays are the team that happens to be here that day. When the season's over, I have every team that I couldn't get on. We have a lot of retrospective stuff. Then I have a few teams from years past that I'm going to bring on as soon as tour season's over. There's a friend of mine, Dave Barton, who I think would be a real fun guy for you all to listen to. Dave is a super good dude. I like him a lot. And I talked to him a while back. He's agreed to be a guest. There's a few other people here and there, some industry people. So we'll do it the way we've been doing it. So this time I only wasted a half an hour of your time, and I feel less guilty about that. Thanks a lot, everybody. I see that this one's been very well attended tonight. There's a ton of people out there, and I hope that some of these last-minute suggestions are actually helpful to you. And look, what is it today? Today is the 5th, so 10 days before the flag drops. We're getting there. Just work on your mind, get your body right, get your mind right, study your nav, dot all the I's, cross all the T's, take care of these little things. Don't go out and hurt yourself before you show up here. And then be ready to rock and roll when you hit the hollow down there. I guess one last thing. Sometimes it amazes me that people don't think about this. Make sure that you get in really early the day before you're getting ready to set out. If you're rolling into Malad at 9 o'clock at night, that's too late. Some people get here a couple days early. There was a team last year that showed up, I think, 3 days early and stayed in Malad, stayed in the Hotel Malad, rode a bunch of those day one trails. That was nothing but a good idea. Now, I know a lot of you can't do that because you're taking 2 weeks anyway by the time you factor in your travel time. But I wouldn't come rolling in at midnight when I had to be up at 3 in the morning to do day one. Get here in the middle of the afternoon. Hotel Malad's a great place. You can get a good meal. You'll enjoy talking to the people down there. They know what you guys are doing, and they think it's awesome. So make sure that you get a really good night's sleep. Go to bed at 8 or 9 o'clock that night. Take some Benadryl if you have to, because you'll be so excited it'll be hard to sleep. By the way, it's another thing that people don't think about. It can be sometimes really difficult to go to sleep at night on the tour because you come rolling in these towns, you're really buzzed because you've ridden 200 miles, 300 miles, whatever it is. You roll in, you're pounding some food, then you go back to the hotel room and you're like just completely buzzed. You still feel like you're on a motorcycle. It feels a little weird walking around on a floor when you're used to, the motorcycle shaking underneath you. And you have a hard time going to sleep. A little bit of Benadryl will knock you right out. Some people like melatonin. I take Benadryl because I know it'll do it. And melatonin is a little bit more. It works in some people, others it doesn't. Benadryl will work in just about everybody, and you won't sneeze at night. Pedialyte or any kind of electrolyte solution, make sure you bring some of that along. Pound as much of that stuff as you can, especially at night. You roll into Arco, Chalice, any of those places, go to the grocery store, get yourself a couple of things of Gatorade or Powerade or something like that, and pound the crap out of that stuff. Drink a big bottle before you go to bed and drink a bottle when you get up in the morning. Those are all things that you can do. Jeff Jensen says, grab some barbecue in Malad. It's awesome. The people along the way, man, they fix some great food. There's a couple places, unfortunately, have closed that we used to send people to. There was a place up in Shoup that had the best hamburgers in the world. I don't know what that guy did to them, but they were awesome. But anyway, that's it. Let's suspend this until next Monday night, and I'll have a guest again next Monday night, and we'll go the whole hour. So anyway, thank you once again for spending some time with me. I always really appreciate it. It blows me away how many people this year have taken a really big interest in this and are going about this the right way. I talked to people in riders' meetings, and evidently I really didn't need to have them because almost everybody really gets what's going on in these riders' meetings, and the questions have been brilliant. Burrito on North Fork is amazing. That's right, Sean. Those North Fork people, they'll hook you up too. Those are the nicest girls in the world at that place. And there are teams that showed up last year really late at night, 10 or 11 o'clock, after the restaurant was closed. And a lot of those teams found a burrito in their bed, along with the key to their room. These people along the way are all really stoked about what you guys do. So don't disappoint them by not being cool in return. And if something does go wrong, again, these people they have lots of people they have to look after. It's not just about you. And I know sometimes in the moment, it gets emotional and, why isn't this person moving fast enough to help me? I got to be out of here at 3 a.m. It's just the way it works. Get in earlier if that's a concern for you. But be cool to the people you meet along the way. That's been a big topic in the writers' meetings. All right. Awesomeness. Keep posting all that cool stuff on social media. I try to like as much of it as I can, but my social media is like trying to take a sip of water out of a fire hose. It blasts me every day. So if I miss some things that you're posting, it's nothing personal. It's just that there's a lot of it. But I try to like all of your cool photos that I see. I see you all out doing all the things that I and others have suggested that you do, and it's wonderful. It's great to see that after spending years working on all this stuff and trying to create a good model, a lot of you are taking advantage of that. You're getting it done. So I'll see you next week. Take care of yourselves. Cheers.